life in ecology. We group it such that a group of the same species is a population. Species is any organisms that can interbreed and produce fertile offspring. Communities, all the populations. Ecosystem, you add in the non-living stuff. Biomes are types of ecosystems that happen again and again, and the biosphere is every place on Earth that life can live. You do get a third brain teaser. What? Mammal. And, okay, mammal for one, so bugs don't count, right? And diseases don't count. Just being a vector for a disease, like dogs are pretty high up there if you consider that. So that doesn't count. Beyond that, what mammal is directly responsible for the most human death? Humans don't count either. Absolutely, you're absolutely right. They would win. They're number one with a bullet, literally. No, like mammal, non-human mammal. Well, hippopotamus. Hippopotamus.
Yeah, they're really dangerous.
Huh.
Oh. Oh.
I do.
Hippopotamus. Why? Because, well, okay, they're really big and strong. Mean and territorial. And they have an adaptation in common with alligators. Can you see it? What is it?
Yeah.
It's the eyes and the nostrils.
Laser.
Yeah. Because what that means is that hippo can hang out in and understand that the place hippos live, the places hippos live are really wildlife builds its habits around water sources. Water sources are all important. You go from watering hole to watering hole, basically, life in the African savanna. And this thing's built so that it can hang out fully submerged in the water with just these little eyeballs poking up and its nostrils to breathe when it wants to. You can't see it. It's a sit and wait predator. Well, it's a combination of a sit and wait predator, but it turns out that a hippopotamus can run, yes, run 25 miles an hour for about 15 feet. Which is just, if you got just close enough to that water and you didn't notice it, you're toast. It's got you by the leg, holds you underwater, you drown, and you're lunch. I thought that was important. You should know. Now I did that so you can use it as an example for energy relationships in communities. It'd be fun to teach a class just about how stuff can kill you.
That's what you do like every Monday.
Dude, they just asked us for submissions for new classes. That's my jam right there. Stuff that can kill you. All year. Mostly Australia. I still don't understand that. Why Australia has so many of them. Say that again?
I don't know, like you look up like the top 10 most dangerous creatures. 7.
I know, and I know that there's sort of a weird. They got cut loose early from the supercontinent, but I don't know why that equates to stuff that can totally kill you right away. Yeah, no, everything that can kill you. Anyway, okay. So basically what we're talking about here is interactions. That's what ecology is all about. Interactions with regard to energy. So we will start very simple with the simplest relationship, where Sam happens to be wandering aimlessly through the Serengeti, gets too close to a watering hole, and it's a good fight. I put 60-40 on the hippo. Sam's strong, but he gets the hippo gets the best of him. And the hippo gets lunch, and Sam gets dead. Sorry. What's that relationship called? When one thing kills and eats another for food. Circle of life. What? Predation. That's just a form of the same word, right? A predator. predation is the noun verb. To predate. Which is weird because that can mean two things. To predate or to predate. Anyway, all right, so, but that's not the only thing going on. Life is complicated. Turns out there was a lion that kind of had its eye on Sam as Sam kind of walked crooked, getting tired of these lines like, I'm getting that giant, whatever that is. He didn't get it because the hippo got Sam. When two organisms are looking for the same kind of food and one or the other gets it, what do we call that? The other simple one. That's competition. So those are the two really simple ones, the ones you see on the surface. But there's more, because a lot of organisms of different species wind up living closely enough together to lead to what we call symbiotic relationships. Symbiosis, again, word roots are your friend here. Sym means together, bio means life. These are critters that live closely together. And there are three types of symbiosis that you'll need to know. And we'll use the hippo for all three. If we follow Sam into the hippo, down into the guts of the hippo, specifically the small intestine, I know, gross. What you'll find is worms. Worms live there. Worms live in the gut of many mammals. These particular worms, we'll say, are Ascaris, little round worms called Ascaris, that's the genus name. And what they basically do is hook on to the inside of the hippo's intestines and just hang out. And that's all they have to do because the hippo is conveniently digesting all this food for them. By the time it gets to the worm, it's broken down into like glucose level nutrients. A lot of these parasitic worms don't even have mouths. They've evolved to where they just absorb nutrients through their skin because it's pre-digested for them. I mean, that's what the intestine's doing, is absorbing those nutrients in the bloodstream, right? So a lot of them don't even need mouths. At some point, they reproduce, and often inside their host organism, they reproduce and create packets of eggs that then come out the back end of the animal, wind up in the grass, and the circle begins all over again when stuff eats grass. What's the worm getting? Whole deal, right? But most importantly, energy. What's the hippo getting? Negative effect, right? Like being actively harmed in the process. That's called parasitism. Parasitism is type 1 of symbiosis. Watch that hippo for a while. You see a fun little drama play out. Which is that this bird will fly over near the hippo and land like on a rock near that hippo that's just like hanging out with its eyes sticking out, and you're like, uh-oh. That bird isn't very smart. I think we're about to see natural selection in action. And the bird kind of looks at the hippo kind of looks at the bird. And then the weirdest thing happens. This hippo opens its mouth like how hippos open their mouth, like, rah! And the bird, rather than run away, jumps into the mouth. And you're like, I think that bird might have been impressed. But no, the bird starts pecking around the hippo's mouth, and the hippo just takes it. The hippo's just pecking between the teeth, actually pulling out a hunk of something every once in a while. It's gross. What's going on? What is the bird getting? Food, energy. What's the hippo getting? Turns out getting your teeth cleaned, I mean, there's a reason we pay dentists so much money. It is not just cosmetic, right? A dental infection turns out to be a huge deal. Why? Why are dental infections so dangerous? Why do we pay dentists so much money?
You need your teeth to chew stuff.
You do? That's true. Why else?
It's close to the brain.
That's it right there. That's an infection this far from your brain. It's a huge deal, right? That can kill you. So having clean teeth on a regular basis for a hippo that's a health advantage. That's an evolutionary advantage. So this type of symbiosis has evolved because it benefited both parties. So when they both get something out of it like that, it's called mutualism. Last type of symbiosis. Hippos are gross. They're gross because they hang out in a small pond all day and they don't usually eat meat. They're opportunistic predators. Like it can be months between when they get a chance for a meat meal. So mostly it's plants. And like you and I, they're not very good at digesting a lot of the plants. It's breaking down cellulose, the cell walls. And so since they're not getting that much energy out of the plant matter they eat, they have to eat all the time. And since they eat plants all the time and they don't digest them very well, the back end of the hippo is basically a constant stream of, hippo waste. Poorly digested hippo food. And there's a saying in ecology that there is, actually they stole it from economics. Economics says there's no free lunch. Ecology says, yeah, but also no lunch goes uneaten. And there's this one fish. It's one species of fish that makes its entire living swimming behind the hippo, getting the nutrients that the hippo didn't. What's the fish get out of this?
Special.
Energy. Not the energy you would necessarily want, but energy is energy in ecology. What does a hippo get? Hippo doesn't even know the fish is there. The fish does not appreciably clean that water. That water is gross. So when one benefits and the other one basically could not care less, commensalism. If there's a new word today, that's probably the one. Sam.
What's the name of that fish?
Ooh, good question. I don't know. I'll find it. So, energy relationships. Now, I want to hit something that supposedly I don't need to teach you, so we'll find out. We got to talk about that too. This is a strange case. This is a little arthropod that gets into this fish and actually eats its tongue, but then clamps its back pinchers onto that tongue stump and functions as the fish's tongue, essentially serving the same purpose and successfully allowing the fish to swallow stuff. So what is that? What relationship is that? Like you'd say parasitism, right? Because it took the tongue. But if there's no appreciable harm done and it functions like the tongue, then what is it? Maybe commensalism? Maybe commensalism, but then is it taking, I'm sure it's getting food too, right? So does that mean the fish is getting less food? And maybe it's back to parasitism. One of those interesting real life situations.
Wow.
Yeah, you're welcome. I have a lot of those that you can't unknow. Okay, food webs, don't write this. But let's make sure you understand what's going on. If we make a food web of, you know, lion, hippo, gazelle, Sam, grass, cake. How do I make a food web out of that? Just connect them?
Randomly.
Sam eats cake, gazelle eats grass.
Just doesn't say anything gazelle.
What?
Sam does eat the gazelle.
Oh, sure, yeah. Good word. Yep, with his bare hands.
Actually, I eat the hippo.
Nice. Yeah, yeah, that's the way to look at it. You win this round. I can't tell anything from this. Imagine I don't know what a hippo or a gazelle are. I don't know who's eating what. How do I make that happen? Elijah. Arrows, good. So the hippo's eating the gazelle, the lion's eating the gazelle. Yeah? No. This is what I have to make sure you know. Which way does the arrow go? How do you remember which way the arrow goes? What is the arrow representing? The arrow is energy. Remember that, you can't go wrong. It's whoever's getting the energy that gets the arrowhead. The energy goes from gazelle to lion and hippo, from Sam to lion and hippo, from grass to gazelle, from cake to Sam. You know, from the African cake video. Good? Okay, I'm not going to do anything else with food webs, but to go one layer deeper, we need to talk about trophic levels. And that'll be our last thing today. A trophic level, if you don't know the term, all it means is, well, you know where 99% of the energy for ecosystems on this planet comes from, right? Where does it come from? The sun, right? So a trophic level is just a grouping of organisms whose energy source is the same number of steps away from the sun. Because we all depend on the sun. It's just how many levels you got to get through to trace it back to the sun. Oh, I only eat meat. Well, you're still eating plants. Because all the meat you ate plants. So of course we start at the base of any food web with those organisms that can do that magic trick that you understand way better than you used to. The trick of taking carbon dioxide out of thin air and basically rearranging it like Legos to make glucose. Amazing trick. Only plants and some bacteria and protists can do it. And everything depends on them. We call them producers because in a very real sense, they are the producers, right? They produce what everything else needs. Too many answers on, you guys did good on the test, but too many people answered on that one essay question. I forget how I asked about the relationship between photosynthesis and cell respiration, but too many people said, first of all, that plants do photosynthesis and animals do cell respiration. That's wrong. Plants do photosynthesis. Who does cell respiration? Everybody. Plants have to do it too. They make the sugars. They got to break the sugar down to get ATP. And so on that longer question, I got a lot of, well, plants depend, you know, we depend on plants for our food, but they depend on us for like carbon dioxide. No, they do not. Plants would be fine without us. They do both. You could put a plant in a dome, and as long as sunlight is getting in, you know, they give off oxygen from photosynthesis and take it in for cell respiration. They take in CO2 for photosynthesis and give it off from cell respiration. They are very much self-sufficient. But they also can support these huge ecosystems. So then we get to consumers, primary consumers. We can also call them herbivores. By the way, you also should know the terms autotroph and heterotroph. If you want to just separate everything into two categories, autotrophs are photosynthesizers. Heterotrophs are everybody else. But primary consumers are organisms that eat producers. Secondary consumers, you see where this is going, right? What do secondary consumers eat? They eat primary consumers. Yeah, carnivores that eat herbivores. What comes after secondary? Art people. Art people always know. Because of colors. Primary, secondary, and
Tertiary.
tertiary. Tertiary consumers. Carnivores that eat carnivores. It does go beyond that. There are such thing as quaternary consumers. I don't know what the word for 5 is. Quintenary? I don't know. But it does kind of peter out at the top there. And we'll talk about why soon. Longer food chains we tend to see in aquatic ecosystems, fish. They eat smaller fish, they eat smaller fish, they eat smaller fish. It's partly because of the cold-bloodedness of those species. More energy for everyone, because they're not eating themselves. Anyway, producers, primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers. Then there's ones that don't quite fit, like a lot of the fungi and bacteria out there that don't make their own, and they don't like kill and eat stuff. They just kind of grow where there's dead organic matter. They grow on rotting tree stumps or in dead animals or, yeah, on your face.
Like yeast infection.
Sure, yeah, lots of different kinds of yeast that infect human skin. What do we call those? Now that's I guess more of a parasitic situation, but the ones that grow on dead stuff, what do we call them? Oh my, Thornberry. Yes. Yes. Thank goodness for decomposers. Otherwise, when you went outside, you'd be hip deep in dead animals. I mean, something has to get rid of them and recycle them and turn them back into stuff that the ecosystem can use. Yeah, okay, so producer, primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer, decomposers, and then there's coal. Then there's coal. Coal, what'd you have for breakfast? Eggs and a bagel? That's a healthy breakfast. Dinner last night. Frittatas. Really into eggs right now.
Exactly, we had like some stuff.
Eggs and eggs are fun. How about lunch today?
Oh, probably the same thing.
Ham sandwich.
Yes.
Got it. Good. So what's coal? Tertiary? Not with any of the description you gave us. No, because most of what you told us, well, some of it was, right, like if we look at the bread, and were there vegetables in your frittata? Yeah,
Oh.
and so that's primary consumption. But then you had ham, and you had little baby chickens, essentially, right? That's what eggs are, sort of. Consider that. Both of those, I would say, are secondary, right? Because those are a pig and a chicken both eat plants. So they're primary, which makes you secondary. So you're doing both at the same time. What do we call that? What's our word for that? Y'all know it, right? Yeah, omnivores. And lots of organisms are like that. So we'll call that a day. Tomorrow we'll look at why we don't generally get beyond like third and fourth level consumers. Why there are so few top predators. Questions?